Despite its name, Fang was an ordinary small town in a northern province of Chiang Mai, situated on the banks of a river. It made a convenient stopover for river traders and passengers throughout most of the year. A few barges, rafts, and sometimes even a large sailboat could usually be found moored at Fang. But all that was long ago, before the creation of the Trial of Champions. Now, once a year, the river is crammed with boats as people arrive from hundreds of miles around, hoping to witness the breaking of an ancient tradition and see a victor in the Trial of Champions. On the 1st of May each year, warriors and heroes come to Fang to face the test of their lives. Survival is unlikely, yet many take the risk, for the prize is great. A purse of 10,000 gold pieces and the freedom of Chiang Mai forever. But to become champion is no easy task. Some years ago, a powerful baron of Fang called Sukhumvit decided to bring attention to his town by creating the ultimate contest. With the help of the townspeople, he constructed a labyrinth deep in the hillside behind Fang, from which there was only one exit. The labyrinth was filled with all kinds of deadly tricks and traps and loathsome monsters. Sukhumvit had designed it in meticulous detail, so that anybody hoping to face its challenge would have to use their wits as well as weapon skill. When he was finally satisfied that all was complete, he put his labyrinth to the test. He picked 10 of his finest guards, and fully armed, they marched into the labyrinth. They were never seen again. The tale of the ill-fated guards soon spread throughout the land, and it was then that Sukhumvit announced the first Trial of Champions. Messengers and news sheets carried his challenge, 10,000 gold pieces and freedom of Chiang Mai forever to any person surviving the perils of the labyrinth of Fang. The first year, 17 brave warriors attempted the walk, as it later became known. Not one reappeared. As the years passed and the Trial of Champions continued, it attracted more and more challengers and spectators. Fang prospered and would prepare itself months in advance for the spectacle it hosted each May. The town would be decorated, tents erected, dining halls built, musicians, dancers, fire-eaters, illusionists, and every sort of entertainer hired, and entries registered from hopeful individuals intent on making the walk. The last week of April found the people of Fang and its visitors in wild celebration. Everybody sang, danced, and laughed until the day broke on the 1st of May, when the town thronged to the gates of the labyrinth to watch the first challenger of the year step forward to face the Trial of Champions. Having seen one of Sukhumvit's challenges nailed to a tree, you decide that this year you will attempt the walk. For the last 5 years you have been attracted to it not for the rewards, but for the simple fact that nobody has ever yet emerged victorious from the labyrinth. You intend to make this the year in which a champion is crowned. Gathering up a few belongings, you set off immediately. 2 days' walk takes you west to the coast, where you enter the cursed port Black Sand. Wasting no time in that city of thieves, you buy your passage on a small boat sailing north to where the river Coke meets the sea, and from there you raft upriver for 4 days, until finally you arrive in Fang. The trial begins in 3 days' time, and the town is in an almost hysterical mood of excitement. You register your entry with the officials and are given a violet scarf to tie around your arm, informing everyone of your status. For 3 days you enjoy Fang's greatest hospitality. and are treated like a demigod. During the long merriment, you almost forget your purpose in Fang, but the evening before the trial, the magnitude of the task ahead begins to dominate your thoughts. Later, you are taken to a special guest house and are shown your room. There is a splendid 4-poster bed with satin sheets to help you rest, but there is little time left for sleep. Just before dawn, a trumpet call awakens you from vivid dreams of flaming pits and giant black spiders. Minutes later, there is a knock on your door, and a man's voice rings out saying, "Your challenge begins soon. Please be ready to leave in 10 minutes. You climb out of bed, walk over to the window and open the shutters. Already people are thronging the streets, moving quietly through the morning mist. Spectators, no doubt on their way to the labyrinth, hoping to find good vantage points from which to watch the competitors. Walking over to a wooden table on which your trusty sword and shield lie, you pick them up and cut the air with a mighty sweep, wondering which beasts your sword's sharp edge may soon have to meet. You open the door into the corridor, and a small man greets you with a low bow as you emerge from your bedroom. "Please follow me," he says. He turns to his left and walks quickly towards the stairs at the end of the corridor. Walking through a parting in the crowds, you see Baron Succumbit himself, standing by the entrance waiting to greet the contender in the trial of champions. You count 5 others standing proudly in line, their violet scarves displayed for all to see. There are 2 bare-chested barbarians dressed in furs. They stand completely motionless, legs straight and slightly apart, arms thrust forward to rest on the hilts of their long, double-headed battle axes. A sleek elven woman with golden hair and feline green eyes is adjusting the crossbelt of daggers wrapped around her leather tunic. Of the 2 remaining men, one is covered from head to foot in iron plate armor, with a plumed helmet and a crested shield. The other is cloaked in black robes, only his dark eyes showing between the swarms of his black-faced scarves. Long knives, a wire garrote, and other silent death weapons hang from his belt. The 5 contenders acknowledge your arrival with almost imperceptible nods of the head, and you turn to face the exultant crowd for the last time. Suddenly, a hush falls over the crowd as Baron Succumbit steps forward, holding 6 bamboo sticks. You draw one from his outstretched hand, and you read the word, "Fit." Then the trial begins. The knight is first. He salutes the crowd before disappearing into the tunnel, and is followed half an hour later by the elf. Next goes a barbarian, and then the dark assassin. Next, it's your turn. But before embarking on your adventure, we must first determine your own strengths and weaknesses. You have in your possession a sword, a shield, and a backpack for carrying provisions for the trip. You have been preparing for your quest by training yourself in swordplay and exercising vigorously. To see how effective your preparations have been, dice will be rolled to determine your skill, stamina, and luck scores. Or, if you wish to begin your adventure immediately, you can choose between 3 ready-made adventurers. First, we'll roll for your initial level of skill. This reflects your sword skill and fighting expertise, and will be determined by rolling 1 die and adding 6. Next, we'll roll for your initial stamina, which represents your strength. So the higher your stamina score, the longer you will survive. This will be determined by rolling 2 dice and adding 12. Next, we'll roll for your initial luck, which represents how lucky an adventurer you are. Luck and magic are facts of life in the fantasy world you're about to explore. This is determined by rolling 1 die and adding 6. You may also take a magical potion with you to aid you on your quest. Each bottle of potion contains 2 measures, so can be used twice during an adventure. You can choose from a potion of skill that restores your skill points to their initial amount, a potion of strength that restores your stamina points to their initial amount, or a potion of fortune that not only restores your luck points to their initial amount, but will also increase your initial luck score by 1 each time it's used. Lastly, before you begin your quest, you are given enough provisions for 10 meals. When you eat a meal, your stamina score will increase by 4 points. But don't forget, your stamina can never exceed the initial amounts you've just set. You have a long way to go, so use your provisions wisely. During your adventure, you'll enter into combat a number of times, and the further you go, the tougher your opponents will be. Combat takes place over several rounds, and your attack strength is based on yours and your enemy's skill scores. For each round of battle, we'll roll 2 dice for you and 2 for your opponent, adding the results to your skill scores. These are your respective attack strengths. Whoever's attack strength is the highest wins that round of combat. If you both had the same attack strength in a round, then it will be a tie. In some battles, you can take an opportunity to escape. But beware. If you do run away, your opponent will automatically score 1 hit on you as you flee, costing you 2 stamina points. So be sure you have enough. Such is the price of cowardice. You are playing using the new battle system, where the battle takes place over 3 rounds. Your sheer battle-hardened nature will mean you'll always win the battle after the 3 rounds, but every round you lose will cost you 2 stamina points. So be careful. Losing all your stamina will still be fatal. At the start of each round, you'll have a short time to decide to fight, or to build up your stamina by eating your provisions or taking a potion, if you have one. You are playing using the traditional battle system from the original Deathtrap Dungeon book. At the start of each round, you'll have a short time to decide to fight, or to build up your stamina by eating your provisions or taking a potion, if you have one. After each battle round, you'll be able to test your luck. By using luck in battles, you can either score a more serious wound on your opponent, or minimize the effects of a wound scored on you. If you test your luck after you have just wounded your opponent, we'll roll 2 dice, and if the total is the same, or less than your current luck score, you will have been lucky. and will take an extra 2 points from your opponent's stamina. But if the roll is greater, then the damage to your opponent will be halved. If your opponent has just inflicted a 2 stamina wound on you, a lucky roll will halve that damage, but an unlucky roll will take an additional stamina point. One last thing. Testing your luck has a cost. Each time you test your luck score will be reduced by 1 point. Now it is your turn to salute the crowd. Holding your violet scarf aloft, you take one final deep breath of cool, fresh air before turning to pass between the stone-pillared gateway into Succumvit's corridors of power to face unknown perils in the walk through the mighty Baron's Deathtrap Dungeon. The clamour of the excited spectators gradually fades behind you as you venture deep into the gloom of the cavern. Large crystals hang from the tunnel roof at 20-metre intervals, radiating just enough soft light for you to see your way. As your eyes gradually become accustomed to the near darkness, you begin to see movement all around. Spiders and beetles crawling up and down the chiselled walls disappear quickly into cracks and crevices as they sense your approach. Rats and mice scurry along the floor ahead of you. Droplets of water drip into small pools with an eerie plopping sound which echoes down the tunnel. The air is cold, moist, and dank. After walking slowly along the tunnel for about 5 minutes, you arrive at a stone table standing against the wall to your left. On it, there are 6 boxes, one of which has your name painted on its lid. The lid of the box lifts off easily, and inside you find 2 gold pieces and a note written on a small piece of parchment addressed to you. After placing the gold in your pocket, you read the message, which says, "Well done. At least you had the sense to stop and take advantage of the token aid given to you. Now I can advise you that you will need to find and use several items if you hope to pass triumphantly through my Deathtrap Dungeon. Signed, Succumvit." Memorizing the advice on the note, you tear it into tiny pieces and continue north along the tunnel, where you come to a junction. A white arrow painted on one wall points west. On the floor you can see wet footprints made by those who entered before you. It's hard to be sure, but it looks as though 3 of them followed the direction of the arrow, while one decided to go east. Ahead, you can see a large obstruction on the tunnel floor. Although it is too dark to make out exactly what it is, the wet, eastbound footprints you have been following carry on towards the obstruction. You see that the obstruction is a large brown boulder-like object. You touch it with your hand. And are surprised to find that it is soft and spongy.
Your sword easily pierces the thin outer casing of the giant spore ball. A thick brown cloud of spores bursts out of the ball and envelops you. Some of the spores stick to your skin and start to itch terribly. You lose 2 stamina points as great lumps come up on your face and arms, and your skin feels as if it is on fire. Frantically scratching your itching lumps, you step over the now deflated spore ball. Pressing on east, you turn left, which heads north for as far as you can see. The footprints you are following start to peter out as the tunnel becomes gradually drier. Soon you are beyond the dripping roof and the pools on the floor. You notice the air becoming hotter, and you find yourself panting even though you are walking quite slowly. In a small recess on the left-hand wall, you see a section of bamboo standing on its end. Lifting it down, you see it is filled with a clear liquid. Your throat is painfully dry, and you feel a little dizzy from the heat in the tunnel. The water in the bamboo pipe is welcomely refreshing and adds 1 stamina point. It also contains a magical solution which will enable you to be exposed to melting point temperatures without harm. Discarding the bamboo, you start off north again, in good spirits. You find yourself dripping with sweat as the temperature continues to rise. As you struggle on, the heat intensifies until it becomes so unbearable that you feel yourself begin to pass out. Although the temperature in the tunnel is higher than you could normally tolerate, the liquid from the bamboo pipe keeps you alive, and mercifully, after a few moments, the temperature drops rapidly and soon feels almost cool again. On the left-hand side of the tunnel is a closed door. It has a small iron plate in it, which looks like it might slide open. The small plate slides open easily, and you find yourself peering into a room with a deep pit in the floor behind the door. On the opposite wall, there is a coil of rope hanging on one of 2 iron hooks. The door swings open into the room, and you step back and jump over the pit. You put the rope in your backpack and jump back over the pit to leave the room and head north. Ahead, you see that the tunnel turns sharply to the left. You turn a corner and almost bump straight into 2 fierce-looking orcs armed with morning stars and wearing leather armor. You are totally unprepared for them and struggle to ready your weapons. The orcs roar, and as you draw your sword, one of them swings its morning star at you, which thuds into your arm, knocking your sword to the floor. You must fight them barehanded, reducing your skill by 4 for the duration of the combat. Fortunately, the tunnel is too narrow for both orcs to attack you at once, so you fight them, one at a time.
You hurl yourself at your enemy, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow. You drop to the ground, sweeping away the orc's legs. Its head hits the ground hard with a sickening crunch. You duck under the orc's morning star, grab it, and ram its head hard into the wall.
The first orc slumps lifeless to the floor, so you turn your attention to the other.
The orc takes a huge swing directly at your head, but you duck just in time. Neither of you are harmed. You leap forward to grab the orc, but he sees you and pushes you aside, readying his attack. Neither of you are harmed. You parry, but your enemy is too fast and you crack your head on the floor as it knocks you to the ground. You hurl yourself at your enemy, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow. You drop to the ground, sweeping away the orc's legs. Its head hits the ground hard with a sickening crunch.
Your fists are sore from the fight, but you pick up your sword and see if the orcs had anything of use. Inside one of the orc's pockets, you find one gold piece and a hollow wooden tube. You put your findings in your backpack and set off west. As you walk along, droplets of water again start falling from the tunnel ceiling. Heading west, you see wet footprints made by the same boots that you followed earlier. They lead to a closed iron door in the right-hand wall of the tunnel, but do not seem to go any further. The door opens into a large chamber, where you are shocked to see one of your rivals who has obviously met a sudden gory death. It is one of the barbarians, and he is impaled on several long iron spikes that are fixed to a frame which has sprung out of the floor. A lot of debris litters the floor, concealing a hidden tripwire which he must have stepped on, releasing the spiked frame. In the far wall is an alcove, in which you can see a silver goblet standing on a small wooden table. The pouch on the barbarian's belt is empty, apart from some strange-looking dried meat wrapped in a cloth. The meat contains herbs which increase your strength, adding 3 to your stamina score. You walk slowly over to the alcove, carefully checking the floor for any more hidden traps. You see that the goblet contains a sparkling red liquid. As you lift the goblet, it releases a sprung catch, and a dart shoots out of the wooden table leg. This will be a test of your luck. We'll roll 2 dice, and if the number rolled is equal to or less than your current luck score, you have been lucky. But if the roll is higher than your luck score, then your luck isn't in. Your reflexes are sharp, and you quickly jump aside. The dart whistles past, only just missing you, and thuds into the opposite wall. You see the goblet lying on the floor, and the red liquid running away in rivulets over the grey stone. At least the goblet may be of use. So you put it in your backpack, leave the chamber, and continue west. The passage soon leads to a junction where you notice more footprints on the floor, possibly as many as 3 pairs, heading north from the south passage. You decide to follow them to where the passage opens out into a wide cavern, which is darker but much drier. Ahead, you see the footprints gradually fade, then disappear. There is a large idol in the center of the cavern that must be 6 meters high. In its head are jeweled eyes, each as big as your fist. On either side of the idol stand 2 giant stuffed, bird-like creatures. The idol is very smooth and will be difficult to climb, but the rope you found earlier will help here, and you make it into a lasso. You whirl the rope above your head and throw it up at the idol, smiling happily as it lands around its neck. You then tighten the noose and start to climb, hauling yourself up the rope. You are soon at the top of the idol, sitting on the bridge of its nose and holding on to the rope. You draw your sword and wonder which jeweled eye to prize out first. As you touch the idol's emerald eye, you hear a creaking sound below you. Looking down, you are shocked to see the 2 stuffed birds flying off. Their wings flap in jerky movements, but they are soon above you and look set to attack. You'll fight the flying guardians one at a time, but reduce your skill by 2 during this combat because of your restricted position.
The guardian snaps at you with his vicious beak. You parry, but the tip of the creature's beak sinks deep into your arm. You're able to grab the wing of the guardian and send it crashing into the idol. It recovers, but you took some of its stamina. Guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak, but you're able to smash the hilt of your sword into its outstretched neck. Coming at you with its razor-sharp talons, you're able to swipe your sword, partially removing one of the Guardian's toes. You're able to grab the wing of the Guardian and send it crashing into the idol. It recovers, but you took some of its stamina.
The crumpled form of the first flying guardian falls crashing to the floor. So you ready yourself to take on the second.
The beating wing of the Guardian smashes into the side of your head, leaving you seeing stars and sapping your stamina. The Guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak, but you're able to smash the hilt of your sword into its outstretched neck. Coming at you with its razor-sharp talons, you're able to swipe your sword, partially removing one of the Guardian's toes. You're able to grab the wing of the Guardian and send it crashing into the idol. It recovers, but you took some of its stamina. Clawing at your leg with its talons, the Guardian rips away a chunk of your stamina. The Guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak. You parry, but the tip of the creature's beak sinks deep into your arm. The beating wing of the Guardian smashes into the side of your head, leaving you seeing stars and sapping your stamina. Clawing at your leg with its talons, the Guardian rips away a chunk of your stamina. The Guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak, but you're able to smash the hilt of your sword into its outstretched neck.
Your final swipe dispatches the second flying guardian. You look down and see the crumpled bodies of the two flying guardians lying motionless on the floor. You start to prize out the idol's emerald eye with the tip of your sword. At last it comes free, and you are surprised by its weight when it falls into your hand. Hoping it may be of use later, you put it in your backpack. You try to force the point of your sword under the emerald eye. Much to your surprise, the emerald shatters on contact, releasing a jet of poisonous gas straight into your face. The gas knocks you out, and you release the rope, bouncing down the idol and crashing onto the stone floor. Your adventure ends here. There is a large idol in the center of the cavern that must be 6 meters high. In its head are jeweled eyes, each as big as your fist. On either side of the idol stand two giant stuffed bird-like creatures. The idol is very smooth and will be difficult to climb, but the rope you found earlier will help here, and you make it into a lasso. You whirl the rope above your head and throw it up at the idol, smiling happily as it lands around its neck. You then tighten the noose and start to climb, hauling yourself up the rope. You are soon at the top of the idol, sitting on the bridge of its nose and holding on to the rope. You draw your sword and wonder which jeweled eye to prize out first. As you touch the idol's emerald eye, you hear a creaking sound below you. Looking down, you are shocked to see the two stuffed birds flying off. Their wings flap in jerky movements, but they are soon above you and look set to attack. You'll fight the flying guardians one at a time, but reduce your skill by 2 during this combat because of your restricted position.
Coming at you with its razor-sharp talons, you're able to swipe your sword, partially removing one of the guardian's toes. The guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak. You parry, but the tip of the creature's beak sinks deep into your arm. You're able to grab the wing of the guardian and send it crashing into the idol. It recovers, but you took some of its stamina. The beating wing of the guardian smashes into the side of your head, leaving you seeing stars and sapping your stamina. Clawing at your leg with its talons, the guardian rips away a chunk of your stamina. The guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak. You parry, but the tip of the creature's beak sinks deep into your arm. The guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak, but you're able to smash the hilt of your sword into its outstretched neck.
You try your luck, and your luck is in.
The crumpled form of the first flying guardian falls crashing to the floor. So you ready yourself to take on the second.
Coming at you with its razor-sharp talons, you're able to swipe your sword, partially removing one of the guardian's toes. You're able to grab the wing of the guardian and send it crashing into the idol. It recovers, but you took some of its stamina. The guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak, but you're able to smash the hilt of your sword into its outstretched neck. Coming at you with its razor-sharp talons, you're able to swipe your sword, partially removing one of the guardian's toes.
Your final swipe dispatches the second flying guardian. You look down and see the crumpled bodies of the two flying guardians lying motionless on the floor. You start to prize out the idol's emerald eye with the tip of your sword. At last it comes free, and you are surprised by its weight when it falls into your hand. Hoping it may be of use later, you put it in your backpack. Back on solid ground once again on the cavern floor, you try to shake the rope off the idol's neck. This will be a test of your luck. Remember, 2 dice are rolled. Equal to or less than your current luck score, you'll have been lucky. Higher than your current luck score, you have been unlucky. The lasso loosens itself, and you are able to shake it free of the idol's neck. It falls to the floor with a loud clatter. You quickly coil the rope up again and put it in your backpack. Wasting no more time in the cavern, you run forward to the tunnel in the northern wall. Not much farther down the tunnel, you come to a closed door on your left. Putting your ear to the door, you listen intently but hear nothing. You enter a room which is small and completely empty. As soon as you are inside, the door slams shut behind you. Suddenly a voice booms out of nowhere, shouting, "Welcome to Deathtrap Dungeon, the ingenious killer labyrinth of my master. Adventurer, I trust you will pay your respects to my master by shouting out his name." You take a deep breath and shout, "Hail Circumvit!" Once again, the mysterious voice calls out, only this time its tone is full of contempt and derision. "So, we have a sniveling weed in our midst, do we?" sneers the voice. "My master has a special gift for you, loathsome creep." Suddenly, water starts pouring into the room through a hole in the ceiling. It soon rises above your ankles, and there is no apparent way of escape. You wade back to the door. It is firmly locked, but in desperation you try ramming it with your shoulder. We'll see how skillful you really are. Remember, a roll equal to or less than your skill score means you have been skillful, but a roll higher than your skill could end badly. The door cannot withstand the furious battering you are giving it. The center panel cracks and splinters, enabling you to kick a hole in it large enough for you to squeeze through. Soaked, but happy to have survived your ordeal, you set off north again. The tunnel twists and turns, but keeps steadily north. Ahead, you see a thin shaft of blue light streaming down from the ceiling to the floor. It sparkles and shimmers, and you can see images of laughing faces in the light. As soon as your head goes under the blue light, you hear the sound of muffled voices. The faces are no longer laughing, but have changed their expressions to one of despair and anguish. A young girl's sad face hovers in front of you, and she begins to whisper a poem. Transfixed, you listen intently, believing that she has a special message for you as she recites, "When corridor doth water meet, do not make a quick retreat. Take a breath and jump deep in, if your trial you hope to win." Memorizing the spirit girl's poem, you step through the shaft of light and quickly head on north. You come to an arched doorway set in the right-hand wall of the tunnel. The heavy stone door is closed, but there is an iron latch and a round handle. Lifting the latch and pushing the heavy stone door open, you find yourself in a large cavern. The light is dim and murky, but as your eyes begin to adjust, you see that the walls are covered in green algae and running with moisture. The floor is strewn with straw. The atmosphere is warm, damp, and fetid, and a soft humming sound fills the air. You step gingerly through the straw towards a corner of the cabin where there appears to be a shallow pit. Peering warily into the pit, you are disgusted to see a mass of pale, writhing worms, some as much as 1/2 meter long. Nauseated, you are about to turn away when you notice that their undulating bodies are swarming around a dagger, its point held fast in a crack in the pit floor. The hilt is cased in black leather, studded with opals, and the blade is fashioned from a strange, reddish-black burnished metal you have never seen before. You long to touch the dagger, but this would mean plunging your hand in among the writhing worms. Taking a deep breath, you lean over the pit and plunge your forearm into the mass of wriggling worms. They are cold and clammy and feel extremely nasty, but at least they are harmless, and you are able to seize the dagger by the hilt. You give it a hard tug and it comes away from the crack in which the tip was embedded. Admiring its beauty, and wondering whether it might once have belonged to some luckless contestant, you put the opal-studded dagger firmly in your belt and leave the cabin. As you make your way back to the doorway, the buzzing sound increases in intensity, and you look around desperately to discover where it's coming from. Glancing up in the nick of time, you see a huge and grotesque black shape of a giant fly emerging from a recess high up in the cavern wall. As it gets closer, you realize that it's at least 1.5 meters long. Its opaque wings vibrate, making the sickening buzzing noise you can hear, and its 6 black, hairy legs are poised to grasp your body. Below, its multifaceted eyes is a long, shiny black proboscis, which darts in and out venomously. You have stolen the giant fly's treasure from her brood of maggots, and you must face the consequences. It's time to test your luck again. Remember, a roll equal to or less than your luck score means you've been lucky, but a roll higher than your luck could end badly. The giant fly swoops down again to try to capture you, but this time you manage to evade its outstretched legs. Stepping back, you draw your sword to prepare to fight the hideous insect as it turns to attack you again.
You hurl yourself at your enemy, fist flailing, and land a stunning blow. The creature flies at you so close you can't use your weapons. Grabbing it by its legs, you swing around, slamming it into a wall. You spin your sword around your head, clipping the fly and removing part of one of its legs. You hurl yourself at your enemy, fist flailing, and land a stunning blow.
Pleased with your victory, you wipe the vile yellow slime from the blade of your sword and walk quickly to the door, back to the tunnel, and head north. The tunnel ends shortly at a junction. Looking left and right, you see a narrow passage disappearing into the dim distance. Ahead, you hear the sound of rocks being ground and crushed. The noise grows louder, and suddenly you realize that the wall on your right is starting to collapse. Terrified, you watch as a large, hideous, worm-like creature with a gaping mouth and powerful mandibles slithers through a hole in the wall. Its great jaws continue to crunch the rock as it turns its head slowly from side to side, feeling the cool air in the tunnel. It appears to be totally blind, but seems to know of your presence, perhaps sensing the heat of your body. It starts to slither towards you with its mandibles wide apart to attack. You draw your sword and advance slowly towards the huge, slimy rock grub.
The rock grub is strong, but slow. You swing your sword, which smashes into its pulsating body. You pick up a chunk of rock from the tunnel wall and hurl it at the creature. It merely catches it in its powerful mandibles and crushes it to dust. You thrust your sword and you clearly damage the creature. Picking up a rock, you manage to smash it into the head of the rock grub. It screeches in pain, withdrawing enough for you to ready for another attack. The rock grub is strong, but slow. You swing your sword, which smashes into its pulsating body. You thrust your sword, and you clearly damage the creature. Writhing around to grab you, the grub smashes into your leg. You are thrown off balance and crush your own arm as you land. Picking up a rock, You manage to smash it into the head of the rock grub. It screeches in pain, withdrawing enough for you to ready for another attack.
Pleased with your combat skills, you step round the great bulk of the dead rock grub and peer into the darkness of the borehole it left. You can only see a few meters, but are able to make out that it inclines slightly and is wet from the secreted slime of the rock grub. Tapping the side of the borehole with your sword, you tread your way blindly through the sticky slime. You follow its twisting and turning course for what seems an age, and begin to wonder where it might lead. Suddenly, you hear a slithering sound up ahead. You freeze with fear, your eyes desperately trying to pierce the pitch-black darkness. Before you realize what is happening, you are gripped round the neck by the powerful mandibles of another rock grub. It is the mate of the rock grub you killed and has been attracted by the smell of blood on your sword. It squeezes harder until your neck snaps like a small twig. Your adventure ends here. Ahead, you hear the sound of rocks being ground and crushed. The noise grows louder, and suddenly you realize that the wall on your right is starting to collapse. Terrified, you watch as a large, hideous, worm-like creature with a gaping mouth and powerful mandibles slithers through a hole in the wall. Its great jaws continue to crunch the rock as it turns its head slowly from side to side, feeling the cool air in the tunnel. It appears to be totally blind, but seems to know of your presence, perhaps sensing the heat of your body. It starts to slither towards you with its mandibles wide apart to attack. You draw your sword and advance slowly towards the huge, slimy rock grub.
The rock grub is strong, but slow. You swing your sword, which smashes into its pulsating body. You thrust your sword, and you clearly damage the creature. Picking up a rock, you manage to smash it into the head of the rock grub. It screeches in pain, withdrawing enough for you to ready for another attack. The rock grub is strong, but slow. You swing your sword, which smashes into its pulsating body. You thrust your sword, and you clearly damage the creature. Picking up a rock, you manage to smash it into the head of the rock grub. It screeches in pain, withdrawing enough for you to ready for another attack.
Pleased with your combat skills, you step round the great bulk of the dead rock grub and peer into the darkness of the borehole it left. You can only see a few meters, but are able to make out that it inclines slightly and is wet from the secreted slime of the rock grub. After a long walk down the tunnel, you come to a dead end. A large mirror reaching from the ceiling to the floor hangs on the end wall, and in the dim light, you can just about make out your own reflection. You step up to the mirror and are amused by your distorted reflection. Your head looks as large as a pumpkin, and your face is exceedingly strange. Suddenly, without warning, a terrible pain pounds through your head, and you try to look away from the mirror, but you are unable to. Some evil force is keeping your eyes glued to your own reflection. You grip your head with your hands and realize, with horror, that it is expanding. You can withstand it no longer, and blacking out with pain, you fall unconscious to the floor, never to wake. Your adventure ends here. Ahead, you hear the sound of rocks being ground and crushed. The noise grows louder, and suddenly you realize that the wall on your right is starting to collapse. Terrified, you watch as a large, hideous, worm-like creature with a gaping mouth and powerful mandibles slithers through a hole in the wall. Its great jaws continue to crunch the rock as it turns its head slowly from side to side, feeling the cool air in the tunnel. It appears to be totally blind, but seems to know of your presence, perhaps sensing the heat of your body. It starts to slither towards you with its mandibles wide apart to attack. You walk down the passage and soon find yourself standing at the edge of a deep, dark pit. The passage continues east on the other side of the pit. You think you could probably jump over the pit, but you are not sure. There is a rope hanging down from the ceiling over the center of the pit. Gripping the rope firmly, you step back to take a running jump. However, in the dim light, you do not notice that someone has cut the rope almost in two, just a little way above the section you are holding. As you swing out across the pit, it suddenly breaks, and you scream with fear as you plunge headlong to the depths below. You land heavily on your back, but luckily your backpack cushions your fall, only costing you 1 skill point and 2 stamina points. It could have been much worse. The darkness is almost pitch black at the bottom of the pit, and you crawl along the floor, groping in front of you. Suddenly your hand touches something cold, hard, and smooth. The object is small and round, but you cannot figure out what it is. You place it in your backpack, hoping to see what it is once you are out of the pit. You continue to crawl forward and soon reach the pit wall. It's too smooth to climb, and you have to cut hand and toe holds in it with your sword. This takes a long time, but finally you climb out of the pit on the east side. You immediately check out the object in your backpack and discover that you have found an orb of blood-red ruby. You are absolutely delighted and head off east in high spirits, whistling softly. The tunnel makes a sudden left turn and continues north as far as you can see. You soon arrive at a closed wooden door in the left-hand wall. The door opens into a large candlelit room filled with incredibly lifelike statues of knights and warriors. A white-haired old man dressed in tattered rags jumps out from behind one of the statues and starts to giggle. Though he looks like a fool, the sparkle in his eyes makes you think there is more to him. In a high-pitched voice, he says, "Oh, good! Another stone for my garden. I'm glad you have come to join your friends. Now, I'm a fair man, so I'll ask you a question. If you answer correctly, I'll let you go free. But if your answer is wrong, I'll turn you to stone." He starts to chuckle again, obviously pleased with your arrival. The old man points at one of the statues, and you recognize it immediately. It is the knight who started the trial of champions. The agonized look on his face locked in stone for eternity. The old man smiles, saying,
"This man weighs 100 pounds plus half his weight. How much does he weigh?"
"What will you answer?" Still smiling, the old man looks at you and says,
"Well done, stranger. You have answered correctly. I wish you good fortune during the rest of the trial of champions. And to this end, I shall increase your powers."
He then mutters a few more unintelligible words, and you feel a powerful surge soar through your body, increasing your skill, stamina, and luck by 1. You bid the old man farewell and leave his room to continue north along the passage. Only a few meters further down the passage, you see another closed door in the left-hand wall. The letter X is scratched into its center panel. Putting your ear to the door, you listen intently but can hear nothing. The door opens into a large room. Looking around, you see an alcove in the west wall. In the middle of the room, sitting in the chair, is the skeleton of an armed warrior, possibly a contestant from years gone by. The skeletal fingers of its right hand grip a crumpled parchment. Touching the parchment has precisely the effect you had feared. The skeleton lurches forward and, rising from its chair in a series of jerky movements, raises its sword to strike you. Lunging sideways, you draw your sword to defend yourself.
The skeleton is strong, but slow. You swing your sword, which smashes into its leg. You dodge to the side as the warrior swings its sword. You kick out, knocking its legs out from under it. You run around the jerking skeleton, smashing your sword into its arm.
Once again you reach for the parchment, only this time lying amidst a pile of broken bones. Unfolding it, you see a map of a room with a drawing of a hideous creature inside it. Beneath the monster is a rhyme, which reads, "Should you meet the manticore, of its tail beware. Shield yourself against the spikes flying through the air." You fold up the piece of parchment and put it in your backpack, repeating the rhyme over and over to yourself. You walk across to the alcove. At the back of the alcove are some steps leading down into a cellar. Cobwebs brush your face as you descend. The cellar ceiling is quite low, and the floor is strewn with debris. In the middle of the wall opposite you is an archway, which leads into another crystal-lit tunnel. There are large mushrooms growing on the debris to your right. You break off a large piece of the mushroom and bite into it eagerly. But immediately your stomach feels bloated, and you can even see it beginning to bulge below your belt. Your whole body starts to expand, bursting out of your clothes with a loud ripping sound. You grow bigger and bigger, and soon your face is pressed against the ceiling. The mushrooms you have eaten are much sought after by wizards for their growth potions, but to you they spell doom. You are too large ever to leave the cellar, and your adventure ends here. Only a few meters further down the passage, you see another closed door in the left-hand wall. The letter X is scratched into its center panel. Putting your ear to the door, you listen intently, but can hear nothing. The door opens into a large room. Looking around, you see an alcove in the west wall. In the middle of the room, sitting in the chair, is the skeleton of an armed warrior, possibly a contestant from years gone by. The skeletal fingers of its right hand grip a crumpled parchment. Touching the parchment has precisely the effect you had feared. The skeleton lurches forward, and rising from its chair in a series of jerky movements, raises its sword to strike you. Lunging sideways, you draw your sword to defend yourself.
The skeleton is strong, but slow. You swing your sword, which smashes into its leg. You dodge to the side as the warrior swings its sword. You kick out, knocking its legs out from under it. You run around the jerking skeleton, smashing your sword into its arm.
Once again you reach for the parchment, only this time lying amidst a pile of broken bones. Unfolding it, you see a map of a room with a drawing of a hideous creature inside it. Beneath the monster is a rhyme, which reads, "Should you meet the manticore, of its tail beware. Shield yourself against the spikes, flying through the air." You fold up the piece of parchment and put it in your backpack, repeating the rhyme over and over to yourself. You walk across to the alcove. At the back of the alcove are some steps leading down into a cellar. Cobwebs brush your face as you descend. The cellar ceiling is quite low, and the floor is strewn with debris. In the middle of the wall opposite you is an archway, which leads into another crystal-lit tunnel. There are large mushrooms growing on the debris to your right. The tunnel continues west for several hundred meters, finally ending at some steps leading up to a closed trapdoor. You climb the steps slowly, hearing muffled voices above you. In the dim light, you can see that the trapdoor is not locked. You hear footsteps and suddenly the trapdoor is thrown back. For a few seconds you are completely blinded by the bright light from the room above and do not see the goblin thrust in his spear downwards or hear his sadistic laughter as the point pierces your neck. Your adventure ends here. The tunnel continues west for several hundred meters, finally ending at some steps leading up to a closed trapdoor. You climb the steps slowly, hearing muffled voices above you. In the dim light, you can see that the trapdoor is not locked. You throw the trapdoor open and run up the steps into a bright, lantern-lit room. Two goblins are sharpening their short swords on a stone set in the middle of the floor. You catch them momentarily off guard, but they quickly recover and both rush forward to attack you. A point of note here, adventurer. Because of the shape of the room, both goblins will have a separate attack on you in each attack round. However, here your attack will only be effective on one of the goblins. Against the other, you must still use your attack strength in a normal way. But even if your attack would have been effective, you will not wound it. It will just count this as though you have defended yourself. However, if its attack strength is greater, it will have wounded you in the normal way.
You hurl yourself at your enemy, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow. You both swing for each other, and in the confusion, both miss. You thrust your sword, and you clearly damage the creature. Your enemy is strong, but slow. and screams in pain as your sword sinks into his leg. You hurl yourself at your enemy, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow. You thrust your sword, and you clearly damage the creature.
Triumphant in one of your toughest battles to date, you see that the only furniture in the goblin's room is a table, 2 chairs, and a cupboard on the wall. There are 2 closed doors, one in the west wall and the other in the north wall. The cupboard contains a wooden mallet and 10 iron spikes, which you put in your backpack while wondering which door to open. The door opens into another tunnel. Walking west, you soon arrive at another door in the north wall. The door opens into a small room in which there is a human skull with jeweled eyes resting on the top of a marble plinth. A row of loaded crossbows is fixed to the left-hand wall, and 2 small wooden balls lie on the floor just inside the door. You take aim and hurl the wooden ball at the skull. A test of skill. The wooden ball smashes into the skull, knocking it off the plinth and onto the floor. Much to your surprise, the crossbows do not release their deadly bolts. You step into the room cautiously and pick the skull up off the floor. You recognize the yellow jeweled eyes as topaz and eagerly pluck them from their sockets. You put them in your backpack, wondering whether or not a trap still awaits you in the room. There is an unseen pressure plate on top of the plinth, and as soon as the skull is put back on it, the device is sprung. Immediately, the crossbows release a shower of bolts across the room. Time to test your luck. Remember, a roll equal to or less than your luck score is lucky, but a higher roll could cost you. The crossbow bolts fly over your head and thud into the opposite wall. Fortunately, you are still crouching on the floor. Now that the trap has been sprung, you can leave the room by the door through which you entered. Back in the tunnel, you head on, west. The tunnel takes a sharp turn and you find yourself in a sort of gallery lined with mirrors for some 20 meters. A human skeleton appears to be pulled halfway through the mirror along the right-hand wall. Suddenly, a grotesque being with 4 arms and 4 screaming faces emerges from the mirror, barring your way ahead. It walks slowly towards you, each arm outstretched to grab you.
It is a mirror demon from another dimensional plane, come to take your spirit. You swing your sword against the mirror with all your might, but to no effect. The mirror does not break, and the mirror demon keeps advancing. The mirror demon is almost on top of you when, summoning all your strength, you strike one final blow against the mirror with your sword. A clear test of your skill. The mirror shatters, sending fragments of glass flying everywhere. The mirror demon's four faces cry out in agony, and cracks appear all over them. They too shatter and fall to the floor in shards of broken glass. I'm sorry to say you cut your sword arm badly while smashing the mirror. Although your strength is unaffected, your weapon skill is diminished, losing you 2 skill points. However, undeterred by your experience, you continue your journey north. In front of you are 2 flights of stone steps separated by a banister of rat skulls. Treading carefully, you slowly make your way up the steps. You soon reach the top without mishap and continue along the new tunnel, which takes the sharp turn right. After 100 meters in the tunnel, you come to a junction. Looking left, you see the dead bodies of 2 orc guards. At least one of your rivals in the Trial of Champions must still be ahead of you. A quick search of the bodies produces nothing apart from a necklace of teeth hanging around the neck of one of the orcs. The necklace is an amulet of strength which adds 1 skill point and 1 stamina point. Pleased with your find, you continue your quest north. The tunnel soon ends at a junction. Standing there alone and wondering which way to go is one of your rivals. It is one of the barbarians. You call out to him, but at first he does not answer. He merely stares at you coldly, his hands firmly gripping his axe. You walk up to him and ask which way he is heading. He grunts his reply, saying that he is going west, and you may go with him if you wish. Although you are slightly uneasy in each other's company, knowing that there can only be one winner in the Trial of Champions, you are both content to share in the benefits of a temporary alliance. And you begin to tell each other of your exploits so far, of the monsters and traps encountered and the dangers overcome. Walking along, you soon come to the edge of a wide pit. It is too deep and dark to see to the bottom. The barbarian suggests he lowers you to the bottom with his rope, saying he has a torch which he can light for you to use. You tie the rope around your waist and take hold of the lighted torch given to you by Throm, as your barbarian ally calls himself. Taking hold of the slack rope, Throm lowers you slowly over the edge of the pit and down into the dark depths below. You can see by the light of the torch that the sides of the pit are extremely smooth. You drop about 20 meters before hitting the bottom of the pit. There, you see another tunnel heading north, and you call up to Throm and tell him of your discovery. He calls back, saying that he is going to tie the rope around a protruding rock on the edge of the pit and will come down and join you. You hear him climbing down, and soon you are together again. Throm retrieves his rope by shaking it off the rock, and you set off north along the new tunnel. On a stone ledge in the tunnel wall, you see 2 dusty leather-bound books. Throm grunts his contempt for the written word, urging you to leave the books and hurry on. As you open the book, it immediately begins to disintegrate, the pages turning to dust in your hands. You manage to keep a few fragments and read the handwritten script. The book appears to be about monsters, and from what you can make out, it contains a full description of a monster called the Blood Beast. It is a horrific, bloated creature with tough, spiny skin and facial blisters which burst open to become mock eyes, evolved to hide the blood beast's only weak spot, the real eyes. Blood beasts usually dwell in pools of fetid slime which give off a poisonous gas so strong that it alone can easily knock people unconscious. The blood beast, although too bulbous to haul itself out of its slime pool, has a long and vicious tongue which it wraps around its victims before it drags them into its pool. As the helpless and still living victim's flesh decomposes in the vile slime, the blood beast will feed on it. You tell Throm about the grotesque blood beast. He merely shrugs his shoulders and tells you to get going. The book pages are sealed together, but a small hole has been cut out in the middle of them, just large enough to hold a small corked bottle containing a clear liquid. You show it to Throm, who holds up his hand, indicating that he does not want you to come anywhere near him with it. His distrust of things unknown is strongly evident. The liquid is a magical potion that will enable you to detect hidden traps and adds 2 luck points. Setting off, you continue your journey north with Throm. The tunnel turns sharply to the right, continuing east for as far as you can see. Throm stops and tells you to halt as well. He turns his head slowly from side to side, listening. I hear footsteps coming down the tunnel towards us, he whispers. Draw your sword. You both crouch down to hide in the shadows, and not a minute too soon. For a moment later, you see the silhouette of 2 armed guards. Throm jumps up and dashes forward, screaming a loud battle cry. They are 2 cave trolls. Throm attacks the first one with his battle axe, and you run to his aid to attack the second.
You parry the attack, but your enemy is too strong, and you crack your head on the floor as you hit the ground. You drop to the ground, grab the creature, and ram its head hard into the wall.
You try your luck, and your luck is in.
You hurl yourself at your enemy, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow. You drop to the ground, sweeping away the troll's legs. It howls as its head hits the hard ground. You drop to the ground, grab the creature, and ram its head hard into the wall. You hurl yourself at your enemy, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow.
You look to the left and see Throm standing over the cave troll he has slain. Blood is pouring out from a deep cut in his shoulder, but it does not seem to worry him. You search the bodies of the cave trolls, but find nothing apart from a bone ring on a leather cord hanging round the neck of one of them. The ring is engraved with a symbol which Throm recognizes. He explains that it must have belonged to druids of the north, and that an ancient talisman such as this will increase your powers if your body is able to accept it. As soon as you put the ring on your finger, your whole body starts to shake. We'll see how skillful you really are. Remember, a roll equal to or less than your skill score means you've been skillful, but a roll higher than your skill could end badly. Your body continues to vibrate intensely, and you feel as if you're about to pass out. But your strength is great, and you manage to withstand the tremendous shock to your system. Finally, you calm down and begin to feel the ring's beneficial powers working on you and adding 3 stamina points. You see Throm looking at you anxiously, so you reassure him that you are fully recovered. He strides off east, and you follow him eagerly. The tunnel leads into a damp cavern with a high ceiling and rock-strewn floor. Long and wet, teeth-like stalactites hang down threateningly. Their constant dripping creates milky pools on the floor. The tunnel carries on through an archway carved in the shape of a demonic mouse. You walk around the cavern, but find nothing of interest. Throm calls out behind you, saying that he has found a leather pouch under a pile of rocks. Opening the pouch, he laughs out loud as a tiny mouse runs through his fingers and scurries off into the crevice behind 2 boulders. Suddenly, you hear the sound of cracking rock above you and look up to see stalactites breaking off from the roof. Throm's booming laugh, which still echoes through the chamber, has made the stalactites vibrate and break off. You yell at Throm to run through the archway as the stalactites start to crash to the floor. This will be a test of your luck. Despite the stalactites crashing all around you, you manage to dash through the archway without injury. You look around and see Throm thundering towards you, one arm held over his head for protection. He dashes into the tunnel
and leans against the cold wall, panting heavily, apologizing for starting the rockfall, and offers you his hand to shake. You tell Throm that maybe he should use sign language in future, even for laughing. You both smile and head east once more. The tunnel ends at a large oak door. Throm wastes no time in testing the handle and is somewhat surprised to find the door unlocked. He pushes it open and walks into a torch-lit chamber. Sitting alone on an ornate chair is a dwarf who bids you enter. As you do so, the oak door swings shut behind you. Adventurers, you have done well to get this far, says the dwarf in a deep voice. However, as you both know, there can only be one winner in the Trial of Champions. As Trial Master, it is my duty to Baron Circumvit, to let only the most able continue. Therefore, I must devise a test of wits and strength to eliminate one of you. Please do not attempt to dispose of me. It will be utterly pointless, for, as you can see, there is no obvious way out of this chamber, and only I know where the hidden exit lies. Now, if you would care to decide between you who will go first, I shall make the necessary preparations. You look at Throm, suddenly angry that your effective partnership might come to an end. He leans over and whispers in your ear that you should try to kill the dwarf and worry about the exit later. As you rush towards the dwarf, he pulls 2 hand darts from his belt and throws them at you and Throm, hitting both of you in the leg. You are both instantly paralyzed by the poison on the tip of the dart, losing you 2 stamina points. As though glued to the floor, you can only watch as the dwarf retrieves his dart from your thigh. He asks you whether you are willing to enter his contest now. You strain to nod your head. Slowly, the effects of the poison wear off and mobility returns. The dwarf beckons you to follow him, telling Throm to await his return. He opens a secret door in the chamber wall, and you follow him into a small circular room. He closes the door behind you and hands you 2 bone dice, telling you to throw them on the floor. You roll a 6 and a 2, a total of 8. The dwarf asks you to roll again, but this time you must predict the total. Will it be the same, higher, or lower than the 8? The dwarf congratulates you for guessing correctly. He tells you that you must now progress to the second stage of the test. He reaches for a wicker basket and tells you that a snake is held within it. He tips the basket over, and the snake drops onto the floor. It is a cobra, and it rears up in the air, ready to strike. The dwarf tells you that he wishes to test your reactions. Barehanded, you must grasp the cobra below its head, avoiding its deadly fangs. You crouch down on the floor, tensing yourself for the moment to seize it. This will be a tough test of your skill. With lightning speed, you thrust your hand out and grip the cobra just below its open mouth. You lift it up, and with your arm outstretched, you dangle it in front of the dwarf. He doesn't flinch, but says in his calm, expressionless way,
"Please put the cobra back in the basket and prepare for the final part of the test."
Follow me.
You do what he says and follow him back into the chamber, where Throm is pacing up and down, obviously ill at ease. You wave to him while the dwarf opens a second secret door and tells you to walk on through and wait for him. Again you comply, and you find yourself in another circular room, although this one resembles a small arena. The floor is covered with sand, and a small balcony runs around the arena wall. Opposite the secret entrance you came in through is an ominous-looking wooden door. Suddenly you hear a shout, and you look up to see the smiling dwarf standing on the balcony. He throws 2 pieces of paper down to you. On one of them, the words, "No crop is," are written. On the other, "Ruin Moat." In his ever-calm voice, he says,
If you rearrange the letters of the words, you will find the names of 2 creatures. You may choose which one to fight in my arena of death.
Can you identify the creature by rearranging the letters? You call out to the dwarf, telling him to send in the scorpion because you are ready to fight. Slowly, the wooden door rises, and a huge, grotesque black scorpion squeezes underneath it and enters the room. You draw your sword in readiness and prepare to fight the sinister creature with its huge pincers and deadly sting. The scorpion will attack you with both pincers, and you must treat each pincer as a separate creature, as though you were fighting 2 creatures. Each pincer has its own skill level and will attack you separately in each attack round. You can only fight 1 pincer in each attack round, attacking it as in a normal battle. But against the other pincer, you must still attack in the normal way. But you will not wound it, even if your attack strength is greater. You must count this as though you have just fended off its blow. Of course, if its attack strength is greater than yours, it will have wounded you in the normal way.
The swinging, venomous tail is a formidable weapon, and you shriek as it sinks into your arm. The scorpion charges at you with its pincers snapping. You're able to jump quickly enough to avoid their sharp points. Your speed is improving. You run directly at the scorpion and slice at its pincer as you run by.
You try your luck, and your luck is in.
You manage to get around the back of your enemy, but it quickly kicks backward, catching you agonizingly in the stomach. You try to run around the side of the creature, but it grabs your arm, throwing you hard into the wall. The swinging, venomous tail is a formidable weapon, and you shriek as it sinks into your arm. You manage to get around the back of your enemy, but it quickly kicks backward, catching you agonizingly in the stomach. The scorpion swings its tail at you, but you are fast enough to roll out of the way. The scorpion takes a run at you. Its speed is impressive, but you jump aside, landing a heavy blow on its back.
You try your luck, and your luck is in.
The scorpion charges at you with its pincers snapping. You're able to jump quickly enough to avoid the sharp points. The scorpion swings its huge venomous tail above its head. You step aside as it smashes into the floor, and you land an attack from the side. You try to run around the side of the creature, but it grabs your arm, throwing you hard into the wall. Your speed is improving. You run directly at the scorpion and slice at its pincer as you run by.
You try your luck, and your luck is in.
The swinging, venomous tail is a formidable weapon, and you shriek as it sinks into your arm. The scorpion takes a run at you. Its speed is impressive, but you jump aside, landing a heavy blow on its back. The scorpion swings its huge, venomous tail above its head. You step aside as it smashes into the floor, and you land an attack from the side. Your speed is improving. You run directly at the scorpion and slice at its pincer as you run by.
The dwarf calls down from the balcony, congratulating you on your victory. He throws the sack down into the arena and tells you to relax and regain your strength for the final part of the test. Then he walks off, saying he will return in about 10 minutes. You open the sack and find a jug of wine and a cooked chicken. The food and drink are excellent, and you feel much better, gaining 2 more stamina points. Fully satisfied, you sit down and await the dwarf's return. After about 20 minutes, the dwarf reappears on the balcony. He calls down to you, saying,
Well, I do have an interesting problem on my hands. Prepare to fight your next opponent.
The wooden door rises once again, and you are surprised to see a familiar face. It is Throm. He is cut and badly bruised and doesn't seem to recognize you. He is clearly delirious as he staggers forward with his axe raised to attack you. The dwarf laughs and says,
The cobra bit him, but he has the strength of an ox and managed to carry on, even though most men would have died. Now you must fight him to decide finally which of you will continue the trial of champions.
You shout abuse at the dwarf, protesting the cruelty of such a contest. He merely laughs, and you have no option but to defend yourself against poor Throm. Despite his wounds, he is immensely strong.
You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points.
Throm grabs you by the throat and manages to half choke you before you get a chance to push him off. Throm is tall, and you duck, grab him, and ram his head hard into the wall.
You try your luck, and your luck is in.
You hurl yourself at Throm, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow on his chin. Throm swings at your head. Thankfully, you duck just in time. You grab Throm around the neck, but he is strong and pushes you off. Neither of you are harmed. You parry Throm's attack, but he is too strong, and you trip, cracking your head on the floor as you fall. You drop to the ground, sweeping away Throm's legs. You hate it, as he howls as his head hits the hard ground. Throm is tall, and you duck, grab him, and ram his head hard into the wall. Throm swings at your head. Thankfully, you duck just in time. Throm swings low, crashing into your ankles and knocking you off balance. You grab Throm around the neck, but he is strong and pushes you off. Neither of you are harmed. You hurl yourself at Throm, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow on his chin.
Exhausted by your long duel, you fall to your knees as you stare at Throm's still body. A bitter loathing for the dwarf fills your heart. Somehow, you will avenge Throm. Engulfed in your hatred, you do not notice the dwarf enter the arena until he is standing right in front of you, a loaded crossbow aimed at your chest.
I know what you are thinking,
He says calmly.
but remember that only I know the way out of here. Get up. It's time for you to leave.
Once on your feet, the dwarf indicates that you should walk ahead of him. Back in the chamber, he crosses over to the northern wall and pushes against one of its stones. A door-like section of the wall swings out, opening into another crystal-lit tunnel. With his crossbow still aimed at your chest, the dwarf smiles, saying,
Good luck.
The tunnel soon divides into two. You hear a buzzing sound coming from the western branch. There is a large panel of glass in the left-hand wall of the tunnel. Through it, you can see a bright, torch-lit room teeming with giant insects of every possible description. Bees, wasps, beetles, ticks. Even the mites are over 6 centimeters long. The noise is threatening, In the middle of the room, a jeweled crown lies on top of a small table. What looks like a large diamond is set in the middle of the crown. You smash the glass with the hilt of your sword, making a hole big enough to climb through. Immediately, the giant insects start swarming and jumping towards you. Wasting no time, you clamber into the room, grabbing one of the lit torches to defend yourself. The fire keeps most of the insects at bay, but by the time you have snatched the crown and climbed back into the corridor, some of them have stung you. We'll roll one die and add 2 to the total to decide how many stings you have suffered, reducing your stamina by 1 for each sting. The giant insects do not chase you, preferring the bright light of the room they are in. You examine the crown and see with disgust that it is merely painted iron, and the diamond is just glass and totally worthless. You throw it on the ground in a rage and wonder which way to go next. Ahead, in the far distance, you hear the sound of slow footsteps coming towards you. Unsure of who or what might be approaching, you look around for a place to hide. You see a large crack in the tunnel wall which lies in shadow. A crippled man with shackled feet shuffles into sight, carrying a wooden tray laden with bread and water. He looks tired and miserable, and quite unmoved by the sight of you, and tries to walk past. He looks at you warily when you tell him you are a contestant in the trial of champions. You ask him what he is doing in the tunnels, and he replies, rather reluctantly, that he is a servant of one of the trial masters, Baron Circumvit's appointed controllers of the sections of his dungeon. After chatting for a while, he admits that he would like to escape, but no one is allowed to leave the dungeon, in case they reveal the secrets of its construction. He tells you that he hopes one day to bribe his way out, and that for 1 gold piece, he will tell you where some treasure is hidden. He takes your gold piece and tells you that in a northern tunnel, there is a wooden chair carved in the shape of a demon bird. In the arm of the chair is a secret panel which contains a potion in a glass phial. It's a doppelganger potion, if I remember right. Good luck. I hope we meet again outside these infernal tunnels. The man shuffles off, and you continue your journey. After a short while, you arrive at another junction in the tunnel, with a choice of 2 directions. The tunnel turns sharply to the right and continues north for as far as you can see. There is a door in the left-hand wall which is ajar, and you hear someone cry for help from the other side of it. The door opens into a small room with a straw-covered floor.
There is a large draped cage standing some 2 meters high in the center of the room. A cord fixed to the top of the drape runs through an iron ring in the ceiling and hangs down to the floor.
You pull the cord and watch the drape as it rises up the sides of an iron cage. The woman's voice urges you to be quick, telling you that the room is booby-trapped, so that the floor will fall away in 1 minute because of your extra weight. The drape rises to the top of the cage, and there, to your horror, you see the face of an aged woman whose hair is a mass of seething snakes. It is the dreaded Medusa. Are you lucky enough to avoid her gaze? Recognizing the snake-like head of the Medusa, you close your eyes to avoid her deadly stare that would turn you to stone. The Medusa shrieks as you enter her cage. Keeping your eyes firmly closed and slashing your sword wildly from side to side, you feel the blade sink deep into her side and hear a loud thud as she slumps heavily to the ground. You open your eyes again and shudder at the sight of the prostrate figure of the Medusa. Her gown is fastened by a large brooch bearing a single bright red gem. It is a garnet, and you prize it out of its setting, put it in your pocket, and leave the room to head north. The tunnel continues for quite a distance before you reach a junction. Ahead, you see that the tunnel turns a corner, beyond which it continues north. You stop before the corner, startled by the sound of high-pitched voices, whispering and sniggering. You peep around the corner and see two small creatures running away from you. Both are dressed in baggy clothes and wear pointed floppy hats. They are mischievous leprechauns. Running after the leprechauns, you hear more laughter, only now it is behind you. You look round and see 6 more emerging from a hidden door in the tunnel wall. Yet another leprechaun drops on your back from a ledge fixed to the ceiling. Shaking him off, you draw your sword, whereupon the laughing gets even louder. You push past the 2 leprechauns and head off north, the noise of jeering and laughter ringing in your ears. Further up the tunnel, you stop to rest and check your belongings. Any jewels you had are now gone. The leprechauns that landed on your back stole them from your backpack. You curse the thieving leprechauns and set off north again. The tunnel leads north for some distance before coming to a dead end. The mouth of a chute protrudes from the tunnel's eastern wall. It seems to be the only way out, so you decide to risk it and climb into the chute. You slide gently down and emerge in a new room, landing on your back. As soon as you stand up, you are confronted by the most repulsive sight you have ever laid eyes on. There in front of you, wallowing in a circular pool of fetid slime, is a bulbous creature too horrible to be believed. Its body is green and covered all over with fearsome-looking spikes. Its face is a mass of crimson blisters, one of which suddenly bursts to reveal yet another of its many sinister, all-seeing eyes. A narrow path runs around the edge of the pool and leads into another tunnel in the far wall. Remembering the description of the vile blood beast and the warning about the toxic gas rising from its pool, you cover your mouth with your sleeve and step forward with your sword drawn, wary of the blood beast's tongue. As you step around the side of the pool, it rolls forward and flicks out its tongue, but you are ready for it and cleave it with one swipe of your sword. The beast howls in pain and stretches forward frantically, trying to clasp you between its blood-filled jaws. You start hacking at its hideous face in an attempt to pierce its real eyes.
You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points.
Breathing heavily during your fight, you begin to succumb to the toxic gas and fall, cracking your head on the floor. The creature turns and whips its tail at you. The fierce spike at the end misses you by millimeters. You jump forward and strike a clean blow into its rear.
You try your luck, and your luck is in.
Again, the bulbous creature strikes for you with its hideous fangs. You jump clear of them, striking out and smashing one clean out of its hideous mouth.
Your blade strikes one of the blood beast's real eyes with devastating effect. It slumps back into its pool, thrashing about in a frenzy. You seize the opportunity and run around the side of the pool to the tunnel exit. The tunnel leads into a large room, its ceiling supported by several marble pillars. As you enter the room, you see a strange beast to your right. It has the body of a lion with dragon-like wings attached to it, but its head is like that of an old bearded man. You recognize the beast. It is a manticore. Taking heed of the warning poem you took from the skeleton warrior, you watch out for its tail, which sprouts a profusion of sharp spikes at its tip, thick and hard as iron bolts. You raise your shield in front of you just in time to protect yourself from a volley of spikes released from the manticore's tail and aim straight at your heart. They sink into your shield, and you remain unharmed. Swiftly, you draw your sword and advance on the manticore.
You lunge at the creature's stomach with your sword drawn, but just as you thought you'd land a crushing blow, the creature whips around, parrying your effort. Neither of you are harmed. The creature runs directly at you. You move too late, and the creature smashes you onto a wall, costing you valuable stamina. You seize an opportunity to attack the creature's leg, but it's ready for you. And before you can strike, it rips your leg with its razor-sharp claws. You run to avoid the whipping tail, but stumble, and a spike from it thuds agonizingly into your shoulder. The giant creature whips its spiked tail at you, firing more spikes. You duck and roll, quickly slicing a chunk from its tail, passing close to you.
You try your luck, and your luck is in.
The creature runs directly at you. You move too late, and the creature smashes you onto a wall, costing you valuable stamina. You seize an opportunity to attack the creature's leg, but it's ready for you. And before you can strike, it rips your leg with its razor-sharp claws. You seize an opportunity to attack the creature's back leg and manage to bury your sword deep into its thigh.
You try your luck, and your luck is in.
You lunge at the creature's stomach with your sword drawn. It tries to move, but you land a powerful blow.
You try your luck, and your luck is in.
As you are wiping the manticore's blood from your sword, you are surprised to see a small man jump out from behind one of the marble pillars. He is dressed in a tight-fitting green tunic and looks quite harmless, although you are wary of the way he is holding an opaque glass ball with a shimmering green light. "Greetings," he says cheerfully. "My name is Igbot, the gnome, and I am the trial master for your final test. Needless to say, my magical powers are great, so you should not try to attack me. You may have learnt, during your quest, that gems play an essential part in the trial of champions. The iron door in front of you is the victory exit, but there is only one way of opening it. 3 gems have to be put into the lock mechanism in the correct order. Each gem radiates a unique energy, which will trigger the mechanism. If you do it correctly, that is. But first, we need the correct gems. First, you will need an emerald." The gnome shakes his head and says, "I'm afraid that you have failed the trial of champions. Baron Succumvit's Deathtrap Dungeon will keep its secrets for another year, as you will not be allowed to leave here. You are appointed my servant for the rest of your days to prepare and modify the dungeon for future contestants. Perhaps, in another life, you will succeed."